All right, so hopefully you checked out the other video. This thing's back. We're gonna check some stuff out, and it's actually getting some more modifications. We end up we're going to do an install here. Lower hard pipe, brand new. Decided that we're going to replace the lower pan gasket because that's actually leaking. We ordered some larger injectors and 3-bar map and tip to go in this also. All this stuff came from Modern, shipped out pretty fast. We were trying to get a transmission mount, but they're on back order. Here's our heater core hoses that we didn't have the other week, so we might actually get the chance and we'll put those on also. But right now we're going to work on getting our fuel pump, or not fuel pump, our oil pan pulled. Along with this, we already did a compression test. I think like 2 of these came up 150 and 2 of them came up like 147, 148. And with the compression test, there's, you know, I guess you could say there's a little bit of a variation that you're gonna get, you know, and it's one of those things where you could do like an average if you did three tests on each cylinder, and that would probably give you something more exact. So right now we actually got to get this oil pan off. We're going to look over some other stuff and just basically check everything out that was done, and yeah, go from there. But we're going to pull strut tower brace. We're going to get this battery out of the way. We're going to get this out of the way so we can pull the lower charge pipe to get the pan off. All right, so got a couple things going on. I wanted to pull this just to double check that we weren't getting any oil up into here. And this is actually very, very clean. If we were having an oil leak with the front main, which would be here, it would leak down out right in this area. Okay, and there is actually the timing cover comes down across, bolts here and across the front. And so far, I would think that if we were getting oil leaking out of here, it would be getting onto the belt and getting splashed all around the inside of our timing belt here. So we're actually pretty good. But we do, on the other hand, have some oil leaking here from somewhere. So I know air comes up in through here and falls around. I did clean a bunch of this stuff up. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, we have an oil pan gasket that we're going to be sticking on. It gives me the opportunity to get in here, clean everything up. I'm going to try to look up above here and see. I mean, you can tell it looks like there's some silicone there. And I have seen these right here cause a leak right at the seam of the oil pump. So, I mean, it could be that. But I think, I don't know if my finger's getting in the camera, but up in here, I think I would see it be a little cleaner right there from oil running. Because your oil is initially gets pumped. Here's your 2 main things. So it comes up through here. You would think maybe because there's an O-ring there, it would push it out and foil down along, but it's hard to say. So we're actually working on getting that out. We've got our pipes off. We're going to upgrade that. But this thing looks good right here. I'm going to put this cover and get the upper back together. Alright, so good thing we got a pan gasket coming. I'm going to pull this thing out. We'll put it in the parts washer. We'll clean everything up like we normally do. Looking at this underneath, pretty clean, believe it or not. You can see lots of oil down across the back, and up here you can see a little bit there, but up through here was actually, it was sealed pretty good. So good deal. So we'll get everything cleaned up, clean our pan. I do have to get a gasket for the oil filter housing if the factory one or the one that's on here is no good. But this is a replacement gasket what you need to do is right here where the seams are, it's made to have some RTV put on it. So we have some black RTV. We're gonna put some here, on that one, and then we're gonna get our pan set up on. Look at how clean that sucker is. All right, we got some bolts over here ready to go. Got our ratchet ready to go. Let's get this on. All right, everything's back assembled. We do have our oil in, so we got a fresh oil change. We didn't get a chance to fire anything up, but we did have a problem. The car was wanting to overboost, almost up to like 30 psi. So right now I have this wastegate on here. All right, so hopefully we can see we do have this rod here. I kind of wanted to show that, but we can pull this out. It's actually pretty hard. It should be a whole lot easier than this. A stock wastegate is 8 psi. So we have our red and green springs in here, which the green is supposed to be 12, yellow is supposed to be 8, which should already be installed, and the 19-pound spring is red, which is this one. But if we pump this up, the rod is now starting to move at about 14. Oh, starting to come out. Might not be out the whole way now. Yep. It actually needs to come out a little bit more. You can see that when you yank on it. So we have a problem. When looking in here, I thought this was the yellow spring. But we're going to pull this thing apart because obviously that's too much for what we need. Nice to have a bench vise on a bench. But you want to squeeze this together because this spring is under some pretty heavy compression. And then we used a snap ring tool. So here we go. All right. Ooh. Up. There it goes. All right. So I'm not quite sure what the yellow spring's actually supposed to look like. Red is 19. See how much longer that one is? Green is 12. What the heck is that spring? All right, so put the 12-pound one in. It started to open at about 12 or 14 and didn't completely open until it was almost like 16, 17. But take a look right here. You can watch it. So it starts coming out at 8. It's fully out now. You can see, watch the gauge, pull on it. Luckily I did have a spring, so we have, I guess it's an 8-pound spring, from another set of springs I had from another wastegate. I think it was like a larger AGP one or just one I accumulated from somewhere, but luckily we had one. I was able to put it in here, so now we won't be overboosting to, well, you know, near 30 psi for no reason. All right, test perfect. We had some other issues that we wanted to try to address. We were getting some water inside when it was raining, so I cleaned all this out. I did get some dirt out, not a massive amount. I pulled all this out. You can see when it does lay in here, it will cause this fender to rust, so it's a good idea to do this every once in a while. This one doesn't, I don't even think this one has bolts in it. But with that being said, if you take a look, this is our factory sealant, and this is something somebody else at one time tried to put in here to try to seal a leak. So it must have been an issue. So what I'm going to do is, I think I still have some brush on seam sealer. I did clean all this down with some window cleaner, I'm going to blow it out again, make sure it's good and dry. And I'm going to coat that whole seam and across here with some 3M seam sealer down across. I also did clean out the drain that comes out of the heater box down there also, because sometimes that will get clogged and water from your radiator, or not your radiator, water from your AC, your condenser inside will drop down in. So I'll probably hit over top of each one of these here also, just to be safe. All right, so we got everything back together here. We did get our brushed in seam sealer across here, so hopefully if there was a leak, this eliminates it. It's only one of those things where this thing will have to dry and check the next time it rains. Being there is no sunroof, it does kind of complicate your guesses as what it could be. It could also be a windshield seal. This is actually, it's still the OEM windshield. Sometimes when cars get hit, the shock wave that goes through it can actually break the seal on the windshield. So it could have a broken seal there. It's too hard to tell, you know? So it's one of those deals, but this is what we can try for now. I'm going to get this the cowl panel cover back on. The seal, I got to reinstall the upper strut bar, and we're pretty much finished up with this thing right now. We do have to install the injectors and the sensors yet, and we're going to be uploading a base tune. All right, well, we got kind of lucky, I guess. The transmelt didn't finally come in. It was supposed to be on back order. Everything was ordered 2-day shipping. We got the rest of the parts pretty quick, and then for some reason this is just standard mail. So now we're getting ready to pull everything back apart. We got to move this wheel, strut brace, battery. We actually have to take the tray and the mount plate out so that we can grind the 2 pins off, and the transmission mount itself. So we're going to have a jack with a piece of wood set up. Hopefully I can do this without having to remove this thing. But let's see what happens here. It's definitely going to be an improvement. I don't know if you can tell in the camera by looking at this, but maybe if we grab a tape measure, try this. So anyway, what I'm trying to get at is this is so funny when you look at this. Core support goes this way, radiator goes that way, motor dips down on this side. I can tell that is probably correct with the engine. To the shock tower, just guessing, because when I take and look at this lower mount over here on this side on the bottom, it's almost touching the back side of the pan right there, pretty much is. And that's because, well, the trans side's sitting low because it still has the factory mount in there. So we're gonna fix that ailment. The car didn't have one on. We figured out that it didn't, and when it came back for getting checked over after it was put back together, which is always something you want to do when you do a bunch of modifications and stuff, keep an eye on it all the time. Drive it for a little bit, check it. Drive it for a little bit, check it. Go back, double check your bolts that you had loose. This is how you have something that's a quality install. No matter how picky you can be, when you put something together, how many times you've done it, it doesn't matter. You're not a factory, you're not a machine putting it together. Everything's not torqued to spec, everything's not brand new. So it does make a difference when stuff gets driven and it goes through a couple heat cycles. Man, Muffin, what are you doing? Cat's just being happy today. So let me get in here, we're gonna get this thing pulled apart. Like I said, I did grab this tape. Let's just see, for curiosity's sake. I don't know if I'll remember to do this at the end. Well, let's go right there. Looks like 3 3/4 and 3 1/2. That's weird. Maybe it's that might look like it's a little higher there. Let's see if we can just come down in the valley. It's in the 4, and it's about a 1/4 inch difference from side to side. And I was going down into the valley here which that's pretty flat the whole way across because that has to be a sealing position. So we got a 1/4 inch drop over here on this side, which is why that's touching. So not that I could really get underneath there and show that, but we will probably be able to see a gap down there. All right, so we rolled the bracket. I ground everything off, cleaned all these threads, got anti-seize on these bracket bolts. We're in the process now of bolting the trans mount to the transmission, as you can see. And then we'll get this thing up and in. And then we'll double check our measurements across our motor to see if it brings up the level of that, which hopefully it will, seeing that stock mount will sag down. Trans mount is in. Right now we are waiting on a base tune, and we're going to install the injectors and the 3-bar map and tip. We'll get this thing ready to go. All right, I can't remember if I showed the measurements here. It's kind of weird. I don't know if something is because it's bent or that mount was just not right. It doesn't sit right, but we had a problem, okay? I'm gonna throw in the pictures here. I did gauge this, and I gauged one of the Timken seals that I had used, but after we actually put some pressure on this and took it for a drive, we ended up getting some leaking. It looks like, when I look through the side of the hole, it looks like right in here, it's really hard for you to see it, but I can see in there. It looks like the seal actually pushed itself out of the pump, and it'll sit here and idle. I brought this thing up to temp 3 times. We didn't have any problems with anything leaking. There was no oil. Took this thing for a drive, run it, brought it up in the R's, brought the probe pressure up, and well, we got a leak. All right, you can get this situated here. Clearly see that it popped out. And that's something that shouldn't have happened. So I'm going to clean this all up, and then hopefully we can see what happened here. Look at the back of this. You can tell it was rubbing this, so it might have been spinning in there. So, all right, I'm gonna get this all cleaned off. I gotta pop out the keyway right there, and then we'll get the seal out and we'll take a look at it, and then we'll get in there and we'll inspect the oil pump and the crank to make sure that there's nothing going on there. And I'm going to gauge this again. I'm going to gauge this one. I gauged the new ones that I had. So we'll see if I can get it out, obviously, without causing any damage to the seal. We'll see what happened. But I've never had one of these. Look. Do that. The thing just moves right around. Nice. Alright. All cleaned up. Even did some of the other stuff here. Alright, let's see if we can get this thing to pop out. Pretty freaking easy. Look at that. This. I don't know if that's coming up. Oh, there's silicone right there. What is that? There's a big nick right there. Let's put that there because I'm still dripping down. And then right here, that was underneath that silicone. You can see it right here on the edge. That's where silicone is. Right there. Just picking that up. You can see the indentation right there. And then there's a nick right there on the side. Alright, so we're looking at an OEM seal. Make sure we're 0. Right? So I'm just going to bring this in here. I'm sure it'll pick it up. Get this thing lined up. 7820, spin it. 7820. Timken seal. 7790. 7805. 7820. Alright, 0. $77.70. I don't know if that little bit, there's 20th. There's 70. 77.90. How particular that is of a measurement. But we definitely did not have sealment on the outer edge of this. Here. That's where I poked it to get it out. But it was moving all over the place. Normally they don't do that. They normally seat right in. Normally I'll pack this backside here with grease. I'll put grease on this side. But this time here we just got a little bit of extra. Alright. The two things that it could have possibly been that are different now was we're back to an OEM seal. We did verify that there's a nick here. We did have different sizes in the seal. There's a little bit of silicone right there. I did put it along the outer edge, and I did lube the seal before I put it on. So, well, at this point, we're just going to cross our fingers. Hopefully it's good. The next thing that if this doesn't work, we'll have to actually replace the oil pump. It was a thought actually right here this time. The first time I've ever had an issue doing any of these, and like I said, the only two variables that were different was not an OEM seal. 2, it actually had silicone in there. So yeah, we had a problem. Alright, everything is together. Still got to finish this up. Get the balancer on. I got my center mount, my trans mounts in. All the covers are on, all the bolts are in. We got to finish up full fight with this to get this back in here, and you know, just get the rest of this stuff together. I found this right here was kind of looks like it's starting to show its age here, so hopefully I'll have another line to go to the tip sensor, and then basically it's just getting everything fitted back up and reassemble everything. And then we actually have, we ran into a problem with the Diablo tuner. So now we're going with HP. The Diablo locked up. So hopefully in 2 or 3 days, this thing will have 1000cc injectors, 3-bar map and tip. It has the correct wastegate spring in it now. And this thing will get some time on it, and it's going to be tuned on E85, and hopefully it makes some power. But I'll show you everything once we get this buttoned up to make sure that we don't have any more leaks.